When a man touches you, not just with his hands but with real intention, something ancient and familiar stirs between you. It's not only about desire, and it's not even purely about pleasure. It's about the quiet conversation your bodies begin when language no longer feels enough. I used to think intimacy was all about chemistry, spark, attraction, or timing. But lately, I've started to sense it's something deeper, something less about bodies and more about truth. Have you ever noticed that in those still moments when everything slows down, your breathing starts to match his? That tiny rhythm you both share isn't an accident. It's a connection, a wordless signal that says, I see you, I feel you, I trust you. And that's the real secret behind why some moments stay with us while others disappear without a trace. What if I told you the difference isn't about what he does, but how you allow yourself to be seen? Because when a man truly wants to explore you, it's not your body he's chasing, it's your honesty, your reaction, that unfiltered version of you that doesn't hide or perform. There's something magnetic about a woman who feels safe enough to surrender, not from weakness, but from confidence. When she stops pretending and simply feels, she becomes unforgettable. Not because she tries, but because she's real. That's what captivates a man's mind long after the moment fades. People often say men are simple, that they only chase pleasure. But I've never believed that. The truth is, when a man is truly drawn to a woman, it's because he finds something sacred in her openness, something raw, alive, and deeply human. It's not dominance he wants, it's impact. He wants to know he can reach you, touch something inside you, shift your energy, create an experience that stays in your memory. And here's what many women don't realize. That craving for closeness, that hunger to see you lose control, it doesn't come from conquest. It comes from devotion. To a man who feels deeply, your pleasure becomes his validation. It tells him, you're seen, you matter, you're enough. It's not arrogance, it's affirmation. The act becomes a kind of language, one that speaks what words can't. Every man expresses that desire in his own way, some through touch, some through patience, others through the way they simply look at you as if they're memorizing the moment. When his gaze lingers, not with lust, but with reverence, it's a kind of worship, not of your body, but of your presence. He's not admiring perfection, he's admiring truth. That understanding changes everything. Because once you realize that, you stop worrying about how you look or what he's thinking. You start focusing on how you feel, you start letting go, and that's when real magic begins. I used to think love was about control, about giving just enough to feel safe. But maybe the strongest kind of power isn't control at all. Maybe it's trust, the courage to open up, to let someone in, and still know you're whole. Maybe intimacy isn't just what happens between two bodies, but what happens inside two souls when they stop pretending. That's why this topic matters. Not because it's sensual, but because it's deeply human. Hidden inside that moment of closeness is the one thing both men and women crave most: to feel understood, accepted, and loved without condition. So tonight, as you listen, ask yourself this. When was the last time you truly let someone see you? The version without fear, without control, without the mask. Because that's where real connection begins. And what I'm about to share might just change the way you think about intimacy forever. When a man feels a deep pull toward a woman, it's not just desire, it's recognition. Beneath every touch, every kiss, there's a quiet question he's asking. Do you feel me the way I feel you? Most people think intimacy is only about passion, but the deeper truth is, it's about validation. For a man, the most powerful moments aren't when he's in control. They're when he sees your body react because of him. When he witnesses that he's made you feel something real. That's the heartbeat of connection for him. He's not chasing pleasure, he's chasing meaning. And what you might not realize is that in those moments, he's listening to you in ways you don't even notice. The rhythm of your breath, the slight tension in your shoulders, the tremor in your voice, these become his guide. He doesn't need words. Your body tells him everything. When you stop holding back, when you allow yourself to express freely without worrying about how you look or sound, he feels welcomed into your world. His focus deepens, his movement slows, his touch becomes more deliberate. Because for him, it's not about skill, it's about resonance. The way your body responds tells him he's not just touching your skin, he's reaching your essence. I've come to believe men are deeply misunderstood when it comes to intimacy. They're raised to be providers, protectors, fixers. But in these quiet, intimate moments, they finally get to stop performing. In that space, they're allowed to feel, to care, to give without needing to prove anything. That's what makes these moments sacred to them. It's not about power, it's about surrender. Think about it. When a man chooses to explore you, he's not simply following instinct. He's expressing trust. He's allowing himself to be vulnerable in a way the world rarely allows. In that instant, all his attention belongs to you. The rest of the world disappears. He's not distracted. He's not planning. He's present. And presence, that's the purest form of desire. But it's also fragile. Because the moment you pull away, he feels it. The smallest hesitation, the faintest insecurity, it breaks the flow. That's why authenticity means so much. When you let him see your truth, the shivers, the sighs, the surrender, you give him permission to be truthful too. You're telling him, it's safe here. And when he feels that, he lets go. That's when intimacy turns from touch into energy. Two people stop being separate. They become rhythm, breath, and motion. It's a dance of trust, attention, and emotion. And for a man, that's intoxicating. Not because it's sensual, but because it's real. There's no script, no pretending, just response. That's what makes it addictive. In daily life, men rarely get to feel seen without performing. But in that space, your response becomes enough. It tells him he's capable of creating comfort, connection, and joy all at once. That's why he hungers for your reactions more than your words. Your body becomes his feedback. Your pleasure becomes his purpose. Each time you let go, it confirms his worth. I used to think women were the emotional ones, but now I see men feel just as deeply. They simply express it through action. When he touches you, that's his way of saying, I care. When he slows down, it means, I'm here. When he waits for your breath to match his, he's saying, I trust you. That's why moments like these last. They're not measured by minutes, but by how they make you feel. They leave behind something invisible, a memory of connection. And when you open up, when you let go of fear, you give him something far greater than pleasure. You give him belonging. That's what keeps him drawn to you. Not because of what you do, but because of how you make him feel. The warmth of your openness, the truth in your reactions, the invisible pull between you. These are the threads that bind him to you long after it's over. Most people chase chemistry, but few truly understand connection. Chemistry fades, connection deepens. And when you stop trying to control it and start allowing it, you create something that feels almost otherworldly, an experience that touches the soul. That's when he stops thinking of intimacy as something only physical and begins to see it as something deeper, almost spiritual. Because now it's not just about him and you, it's about what happens in the space between you both, that invisible language made of touch, breath, and emotion that no words can truly describe. And maybe that's the real secret behind why some moments stay with us forever. They're not about the act itself. They're about the exchange, the giving, the trust, the unspoken truth that in that one instant, two people stopped being separate and remembered what it means to truly be human. But there's something more, something most people don't notice, and it changes everything about how men connect and love, and that's what I'll share next. What many overlook is that for a man, intimacy isn't just something he offers, it's something he uncovers about himself in the process. Every time he gets close enough to feel your breath, your heartbeat, your warmth, he's not just learning about you. He's discovering parts of himself that he can't reach anywhere else. The man who slows down, who pays attention, who listens to your body, is also tuning in to his own. He's realizing that tenderness doesn't make him weak. It makes him feel alive. He's learning that real power isn't about control, it's about presence. And in that moment, as he senses you respond to his touch, he understands something that no amount of reasoning or experience could ever teach him. That connection is the purest form of strength. Men are rarely given permission to feel deeply. They're raised to compete, to achieve, to perform, but in this quiet, wordless exchange, all that fades away. There's no goal, no scoreboard, no need to prove anything. There's only breath, movement, emotion. It's a space where he doesn't have to pretend. He simply exists. And that's why he keeps returning to it, not out of desire alone, but from a longing for that rare sense of wholeness. You might not realize it, but when you let him explore you with patience and care, you're teaching him something powerful. That it's safe to be gentle, that strength and softness can coexist, that he doesn't need armor to be valued. The moment you touch his face or rest your hand at the back of his neck, you're telling him, you're enough. You don't have to fight here. And that message rewires something deep inside. It disarms him. It makes him want to stay, to listen more closely, to give more freely. Because finally, he's found a space where he can breathe without pretending. That's the secret heartbeat beneath true intimacy. It's not about pleasure, it's about peace. The kind that comes when two people trust each other enough to stop performing. That's when everything shifts. The air feels thicker, the world goes quiet, and what's left is pure presence. The small sounds, the slow rhythm, the heat between two bodies. It becomes its own language. Not loud or dramatic, but the kind you feel in your bones. It tells him he's home, and the truth is, men don't talk about this because they don't have the words. They'll say it was incredible, unforgettable, but what they really mean is that something in that moment touched a part of them they didn't know existed. Something that reminded them what it feels like to be safe enough to feel. That's what they crave. That's what they chase. Not just the physical act, but the emotional permission it brings, the chance to drop the weight of expectations, to stop being the one who always has to lead, decide, and protect. For once, he gets to let go, to follow your rhythm, to be guided by something beyond control, and that surrender feels like freedom. For women, surrender often means trust. For men, it means relief. Because when he's with you in that quiet, honest space, he's not calculating, not defending, not performing. He's just being. That's the part of intimacy nobody really teaches us. The part that isn't about pleasure, but about truth. And once truth is felt, it can't be forgotten. It stays with him. It lingers. It calls him back, again and again, not just to your body, but to the version of himself that exists only when he's with you, the one who's allowed to feel everything. That's why, long after the moment passes, long after the lights fade and the world returns, he'll still remember not exactly what happened, but how he felt. The warmth, the calm, the sense of being known. It's not obsession, it's recognition. The soul recognizing the one place it could finally rest. That's what intimacy really is. Not fire, but grounding. Not conquest, but communion. And when a man finds that, he doesn't want to lose it. He'll search for it again, not to repeat the act, but to revisit that quiet, wordless peace. Because deep down, every man, no matter how strong or controlled he appears, just wants to feel he can let go and still be enough. But the real question is what happens when he finds that connection and realizes it changes the way he sees love itself. That's the truth we step into next. When a man finally understands that intimacy is more than touch, something inside him begins to shift. He starts to see that love isn't measured by intensity, but by steadiness, by how safe he feels being fully himself with you. For years, he might have believed that attraction was about excitement, the rush, the chase. But once he's experienced real connection, the kind that quiets his mind and steadies his heart, everything changes. He begins to crave calm more than chaos. He starts to prefer depth over thrill. And here's the paradox. The more grounded he feels with you, the more passion he can express. Because passion that grows from safety burns steadier, deeper, and cleaner than any fleeting spark. I once believed men feared vulnerability, that they ran from emotions that made them uncertain. But I've come to see the opposite. What men truly fear is being vulnerable with the wrong person, someone who won't understand the silence behind their strength. When a man opens up in intimacy, when he lets you see the softness behind his composure, he's not just trusting you with his body, he's trusting you with his identity. That's a level of exposure far deeper than skin. It's him saying, "This is me without the mask. Will you still see me the same?" And when you respond not with words but with warmth, with a look, a sigh, a touch that says, "You're safe here," you give him something rare, emotional refuge. That's what keeps him loyal in ways logic can't explain. Because once a man feels peace in your presence, no thrill outside of it compares. You become the place where he remembers who he is when he doesn't have to perform. That's the real secret of attraction. It's not about looks or perfection, but energy, the kind that says, "You can exhale here." When a woman carries that energy, she doesn't need to chase. She draws. Her stillness becomes magnetic. Her softness becomes her strength. Because true softness isn't weakness, it's an invitation. And a man who's spent his whole life fighting for control will always be drawn to the place where he no longer has to fight. In that way, intimacy becomes healing. Every breath, every touch, every quiet moment becomes a kind of therapy, a reminder that it's okay to feel, okay to let go, okay to simply be human. That's why for men, true connection often feels sacred. It's not escape, it's return. A return to honesty, to emotion, to presence. When he's with you that way, he's not running from life, he's reconnecting to it. The sound of your breath, the warmth of your skin. It's not just stimulation, it's grounding. It tells him he's real, that this moment exists beyond thought or duty. And that realization changes how he loves. Because once a man experiences love through presence instead of performance, he stops chasing validation and starts seeking harmony. He doesn't want to impress you, he wants to feel you. He doesn't need to dominate, he wants to understand. That shift turns intimacy from an act into a conversation, from desire into devotion. That's when his love grows up. It becomes less about what he can get and more about what he can give, not to prove, but to connect, not to control, but to care. You'll notice it in the way he touches you, not hurried, not routine, but full of purpose, almost sacred. You'll feel it in the way he looks at you afterward, as if he's still tracing the echo of your energy hanging in the air. And in that look, you'll sense something far deeper than desire. You'll see gratitude, because now he understands that what you shared wasn't just pleasure, it was perspective. It was a mirror that showed him his own depth. And that awareness changes him. He starts to love differently, to speak with more meaning, to move through life with a calm confidence born from knowing what genuine connection feels like. But that kind of closeness, the kind that truly shifts a man, depends on one essential thing: a woman's ability to stay open without losing herself. Because connection isn't about giving everything away. It's about allowing what's real to move freely between two souls. That balance, that dance between giving and grounding, defines love at its highest form. Still, there's a final layer to this truth, one that shows why a connection like this doesn't just change him, it transforms you too. Once you understand it, you'll never see intimacy the same way again. When two people reach that depth, something almost magical happens. It stops being about who gives or who receives. It becomes a shared current, like two rivers blending until you can't tell where one begins and the other ends. You feel it in the quiet after the rush, when everything slows and all that's left is the heartbeat beneath the silence. That's the moment when closeness turns into transformation. When both of you realize what you're feeling isn't just intimacy, it's clarity. You start to see each other in new light. The walls that once felt necessary begin to disappear. You stop performing versions of yourselves you thought others wanted to see, and you begin showing the raw parts that rarely see daylight. For him, it's the first time he lets himself feel without fearing he'll be misunderstood. For you, it's when you discover that your softness isn't weakness, it's power, because it touches him in ways strength never could. I used to think that transformation in love came from big gestures or dramatic moments, but now I see it happens in whispers, in pauses between breaths, in the spaces where you stop trying to prove and simply allow yourself to be. That's the beauty of real connection. It rewrites the story of who you are. He starts to realize that being masculine doesn't mean being untouchable. It means having the courage to feel deeply. You start to understand that being feminine isn't about pleasing. It's about radiating honesty so pure that it creates safety. Together, you begin to see that intimacy isn't a finish line. It's a rhythm, a flow of giving, receiving, resting, and returning. And in that rhythm, something ancient awakens. You start to remember love as it was before the world told you what it should look like. You remember the instinct to touch, to listen, to care. You remember that vulnerability isn't the opposite of strength. It's the heart of it. That's why a connection like this feels almost spiritual. It's not about escaping life, but returning to it more whole. The energy between you shifts from urgency to understanding. There's no rush because the presence itself becomes the pleasure. Every glance, every sigh, every quiet breath becomes a thread weaving something sacred. And through that weaving, you both heal pieces of yourselves you didn't know were hurting. He heals the part of him that was told men shouldn't feel. You heal the part of you that was told women must hide their longing. Together, you rewrite the story. You create a new language made of patience, awareness, and truth. That's why genuine intimacy leaves a mark time can't erase. It's not about memory, it's about imprint. It changes how you move through the world. He carries your softness in his touch, and you carry his calm in your pulse. You both become gentler, not weaker, but wiser. Because once you've seen what love looks like without performance, you can't go back. That's the quiet revolution of connection. It teaches that love doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for presence. It's not found in noise or grand declarations, but in the stillness of mutual recognition. I see you. I trust you. I choose you. That's the kind of love that lingers even in absence, because it's not tied to touch. It's tied to truth. And truth has a way of echoing long after the moment fades. He'll carry it in his voice, in his glance, in the peace that wasn't there before. You'll carry it in your breath, in the confidence that no longer needs outside approval, in the quiet knowing that you are worthy of being felt completely. This kind of connection doesn't just change relationships, it transforms the people inside them. It refines them. It brings them home to themselves. That's why it feels rare, why it feels electric, unforgettable. Because once two souls meet that deeply, they can't return to the surface the same. They've experienced what it means to merge without losing, to surrender without disappearing. That balance, that trust, becomes the heartbeat of something far greater than romance. It becomes growth. But there's one more truth, a final layer most people never touch. It's the realization that the deepest connection you can experience doesn't start with another person. It begins with you. Everything you've felt leads here, to the quiet understanding that real connection doesn't begin with what someone gives you, but with what you allow yourself to feel within. The truth is, no matter how deeply someone sees you, if you can't meet yourself with the same honesty, the bond won't last. It will fade, flicker, and dissolve back into longing. That's why the strongest intimacy isn't about being chosen. It's about being open. When you learn your own rhythms, your needs, your edges, you stop waiting for someone to complete you. Instead, you create space for someone to meet you. That's the root of lasting chemistry. Two whole beings choosing to intertwine, not two halves trying to fix each other. For men, this is an awakening. They begin to realize that what they seek in a woman, softness, trust, surrender, is actually a reflection of what they long to feel inside themselves. For women, it's understanding that what draws a man isn't beauty or perfection, but presence, the calm confidence of someone who already knows her own worth. When both people reach this awareness, intimacy becomes natural. There's no need for tests, for games, for struggle. It becomes a shared flow, a gentle invitation to see and be seen. You start to move with intention, not desperation. You start to speak from truth, not fear. You begin to see that love in its purest form isn't something that happens to you. It's something that moves through you. It's not what you chase, it's what you allow. I used to believe that to be loved, you had to impress, to perform, to earn it. But love earned through performance always demands another act. It's draining. Real love, the kind that transforms you, asks for something bolder, stillness. It asks you to stop striving and start being, to sit in your truth long enough for someone to see it, to trust that you don't need perfection to be worthy. That's what draws what's real toward you. When you stop pretending, your presence becomes magnetic. The right people feel it. The right energy reflects it. That's how connection finds you, not through effort, but through authenticity. When that happens, intimacy shifts again. It stops being a hunt for validation and becomes a celebration. You stop seeking love to fill emptiness. You share love because it overflows. You stop craving attention. You give awareness. You stop fearing vulnerability. You welcome it as a bridge between souls. That's when everything you thought you knew about love folds back into one simple truth. Love isn't something you find, it's something you become. You become love in the way you listen, in the way you breathe, in the way you let life touch you gently. You become love in the way you allow yourself to be seen without armor. That's why the journey of intimacy always brings you back home, to yourself. Because only from that place can you share something lasting. The man who learns this won't mistake intensity for connection. He'll find passion inside peace. The woman who learns this won't give from emptiness. She'll give from wholeness and never feel drained. Together, they'll create something rare, love that breathes, that grows, that expands, a love that doesn't consume but completes. So if something in these words moved you, let that feeling stay. Let it echo softly. Let it remind you that what you're searching for already lives inside you, waiting not to be found, but to be reflected. And maybe tonight, instead of asking who will understand you, you'll ask if you're willing to understand yourself. Because that's where every real connection begins. Not in the touch, not in the words, but in the quiet courage to be real. And when you meet someone who can hold that truth with you, when you both arrive with nothing to prove and everything to feel, that's when love stops being a mystery and becomes what it was always meant to be. Home,